All right, I just watched one of my absolute most anticipated movies of the year, the family classic, the future family classic, Civil War. There's a lot of reasons why I was looking forward to this movie. One, I love movies that really kind of scare you and make you think and put you in the situation. I don't ever wish for this to ever happen, of course. Last thing in the world that I would ever want. But Red Dawn is one of my favorite movies, and I just love the idea of being put in that situation and making you think. I wanted to know if this movie was going to be political. I know everyone's saying that. I wanted to know which way it would be leaning. I know a lot of people are saying it's not leaning either way. I slightly disagree with that. I wanted to know if it was cool, if it was good, if it was worth watching, and I really wanted to see the portrayal of a modern American Civil War and just see if it felt authentic and plausible. So my theater was probably at about 50 people in it. It was probably 1/3 to 1/4 full. So more people than normal for this kind of movie at this time of day, but still not packed. Obviously, this isn't the kind of, not everyone sees this preview and is like, oh yeah, I want to go see that right now. All right, sneaking a little bit ahead to the closing credits, I saw the military advisor name go by, and based on what I had just watched for the last almost 2 hours, I was extremely interested to know who the military advisor was, and it was Ray Mendoza. So I looked him up. He's part of War Office Productions. It's a Navy SEAL and an Army Ranger that started this. I guess it's just a film advising company, because a lot of the military stuff in the movie did actually feel authentic. So when the military advisor name came up in the credits, I was very interested to see who it was. I'll try to keep this review spoiler free, maybe some mild spoilers, and then maybe if I really feel like I need to talk spoilers, I'll do that separately, or I'll warn you. So one thing that stood out to me was in the very, very beginning, like the opening credits, when it was showing Nick Offerman, I think that's his name, as the president, and then showing like riot footage, and I was like, oh, look at, I wonder if they got a bunch of like actors and extras to like act like they're rioting. And I was looking at it, and I have watched a lot of riot footage online. Don't ask me why, or you can, but so I actually recognized a lot of it. And one clip that I recognized was when somebody had taken a police service rifle out of a police car during a riot, and a former Marine, once a Marine, always a Marine, but a guy who was no longer in the Marines, who was acting as a bodyguard, saw this person holding this police service rifle, and he pulled out his handgun, and he went and took this rifle from this person and basically disabled the rifle and gave it to proper authorities, and was pretty much regarded as a hero. That clip was in this movie, and I was pretty blown away because that was a very impactful clip. So, I mean, it sets the stage for pieces of journalism standing the test of time, and I will never forget that clip as long as I live. And I don't think I saw it live, but I definitely saw the coverage of it, and it was actually very impactful to me. And so I think they were setting the stage for the movie, being like, look at all this like real footage and see how it affects you. Now here's a story of our people gathering footage to maybe affect people. I thought this movie did a good job of portraying how a war on American soil would affect the general populace. Like, they showed a lot, like, it wasn't really like a riot. Well, it was kind of turned into a riot, but like civil unrest. They showed a lot of like families trying to get water. Like, just the basic necessities were gone. And so this is yet another movie, another idea, another beacon to be like, hey, maybe you should be prepared a little bit in case things happen. So I just thought it was interesting that it portrayed your common people being the ones that suffer the most. And just a couple minutes into the movie, so this is a mild spoiler, but if you've watched the movie for 1 minute, you'll see this thing. There's like a suicide bomb that goes off, and it's a person carrying an American flag, and they just charge in, and they're like, "Wah!" American flag, and they suicide bomb themselves. And I don't know, I feel like the average moviegoer, as far as like the content of a movie, is shocked more often than they should be, because I think you can research movies before you go to them to see what kind of things are going to be in them, as far as like swears and violence and stuff like that. And after this bomb went off, there was the aftermath, and it was showing it, and I heard, gosh, like, I swear half of the theater gasp, just like, you know, like, because they're showing some grim stuff, and I don't know if I'm just super desensitized, but I was like, all these bodies are intact. Yeah, and they looked bloody and there was blood everywhere and they looked dead and stuff, but I was just like, where's all the pieces? So maybe that took me out of it, and I was kind of expecting more gore from this movie, but still there was quite a lot of disturbing violence in this movie, and that was just the opening scene was like, hey everyone, this movie's no joke, and the gasp of the theater kind of showed people like getting tuned into what kind of movie this was. And then as they were showing the aftermath, the movie itself was silent, and my goodness, so was the theater. The theater was absolutely silent. It was a loud silence. Now this movie very quickly turns into a road trip movie. You can go look at synopses other places. I've seen a million reviews. I don't need to hear a synopsis of this movie again. Turns into a road trip movie, and just there's some, I found myself laughing sometimes during this movie, just that stuff they put in it. One, they're like, if you go to Washington, D.C. and you're a journalist, you'll get shot on the site, because journalists get shot on site in D.C. I was just like, okay. Real quick note on the teams. So you have like the federal government with the president in his third term who has disbanded the FBI. And then you have the Western forces, which is Texas and California. And no, they do not explain how they are fighting together. And then there's like some Florida thing. But on screen, there were uniformed people in like American OCP uniforms for the federal government, American OCP uniforms for the Western forces, and they had a flag that had 2 stars on it with the stripes, and so that's how you could tell them. And then there were like the Boogaloo Boys, which was basically like tactical looking civilians with like Hawaiian shirts. You know, you can look that up if you're curious. One thing I thought was funny is in New York City, there was graffiti that said F the Western forces, and it's just like, okay, that seems something that someone in New York would put in graffiti. That feels true to life. One thing I really liked about the cast of this movie is you have the old guy that played Thufir Hawat in Dune, and then you have the young journalist. She's supposed to be like 23, and then you have Kirsten Dunst, who's like a grizzled old, like 40-something-year-old journalist. So you have the really, really old guy who's like at the sunset of his life, still going, still doesn't want to quit. And then you have the super grizzled, super disenchanted Kirsten Dunst. And then you have the brand new journalist. So you basically have 3 generations of journalists. And it was actually really cool to see all these situations from all of their perspectives. And then there was the male co-star to Kirsten Dunst who was there also. Now, I was a little bit hypersensitive watching for things that were leaning one way or another. And I definitely, and people say if you look for it, you'll see stuff, like because you'll see what you want to see. But I think you could objectively be like, oh, this movie is showing you this thing to portray this side of the aisle. And so a lot of people have said that this movie is just a series of scenes, and it totally is. It's just like, oh, what's another Civil War scene we could show? Okay, this. All right, let's drive to that and then show that. And one thing I was thinking is, as far as like the American Civil War and the people that they encounter across the country, it just felt like an extreme caricature of existing American stereotypes. So you see your redneck type folks with your AR-15s, and you see the power that they have, that they then abuse and become cruel, and then the fear that unarmed people have being around those like armed civilians, right? And so to me that felt more, that didn't feel apolitical, and that was just again another stereotype of an existing American stereotypes that they've pushed up to the extreme level. There were also, again, there was like the Boogaloo guys, so like the Hawaiian shirts with tactical vests, cargo pants, just fighting against the uniformed military. And so again, these are existing groups of people that you can see now. Multiple times characters mentioned that people and their families were back on their farm in like Missouri or Colorado, just trying to ride it out, pretending it doesn't exist. So I thought, again, that was interesting, being like, there are these kind of people and there's these parts of the country where that actually would happen. So I thought that was interesting. There was a scene where people are needing to buy something and they were offering American money and it just wasn't working. And then they're like, well, we'll give you Canadian money. And then it worked. And I was like, okay, well, the American dollar would be destroyed in a civil war, so that makes sense. But I just thought that was an interesting detail. Now, one thing I did not like and I did not buy but I know that it had to be this way for the movie, is these journalists would pair up with some military people, and they pair up with different sides of military people, and they get so close that the fighting people pop out of cover to shoot, and then the journalists pop out of cover with them to like take pictures. And it's like, that is too close. It's too stupid. It's too dangerous. Like, if anyone uses anything other than just a tiny bullet, like let's say a grenade or a rocket propelled grenade, it's like, you're gonna die. You're gonna get splash damage and you're gonna die. Like, the journalists were so close to the fighting that they were basically participating in room clearing. Now, they weren't shooting, but they were like going room to room with people. And it's like, gosh, this feels, I don't know. To me, it didn't feel real. If you think that's realistic, I would love to hear your opinion on that. But to me, they just felt, they were so close to the action. And again, I know we were following them, so that was like our ticket to the action, but it just felt unrealistically close. There's multiple executions in this movie. Speaking just the whole, like, all the violence in this movie is terrible because it's like American on American violence, and it's very unsettling to watch. But there was all manner of executions from multiple sides. You know, like, this group of people is now executing these people, and this group of people, and it was just full of war atrocities. The music reminded me of the Strong Bad email about independent movies. Where there was just like some weird indie, the music, like the songs felt like an indie movie, but then like the orchestrated, if you can call it that, was very weird noises, and I was like, this is kind of felt indie movie-ish. I don't know, this might be slight spoiler to the background of Kirsten Dunst's character. She did incredible, by the way, in this movie. So the way she got famous was she took a photograph, right? And read into this how you will, but her photograph said, it was the famous photograph of the Antifa massacre. So they don't explain what that means. If it's Antifa getting massacred or Antifa massacring someone. I interpreted it as someone massacring Antifa, most likely this third-term president who also disbanded the FBI. Just me connecting the dots. I don't know if the writers meant that, but that's how she got famous, is by photographing the Antifa massacre. Again, what does that mean? I don't know. Maybe I just read into it. Maybe I just projected. I don't know. But that's what they said. And it was another one of those movies, like an eyebrow raised moment, where it's just like, I don't think this movie is as apolitical as people are hoping it is or claiming it is. But again, it's not. I didn't feel like it was too much one way or the other. It was actually cool where the movie had sucked you in so much to one point where they go to a town that's like a little bit more out of the way of the war, and there's this beautiful shot of a lawn getting watered. I know that sounds weird, but the cinematography in this is great and very, very artistic. A lot of shots where like my head would be in focus and the entire rest of the frame would be like blurry and beautiful colors and stuff. Anyway, there's this watering lawn, and to the point where you're like, it's jarring and unsettling because you're like, oh my gosh, why are they watering the lawn? They should be saving water. Remember all those people at the beginning of the movie that didn't have water? Like, why are they watering the lawn? So I just thought it was cool that by the time I made it to this part of the movie, it made me feel that way. So I was like, good job, movie. And there was probably my favorite shot in the movie was, two favorite shots, I think. One's in the trailer where you see the guys with bags on their heads getting escorted past this journalist girl who's leaning against the wall. That's a really cool shot. But the other shot was Kirsten Dunst's character was hiding, right, because they're shooting, and her face was down in the grass, and there's all these little flowers, and she just started looking at the flowers, and you could tell that it was like a nice diversion for her, and then that's all she was focusing on during this crazy event. But I thought that was cool. That was probably my favorite shot. And a lot of people who I read about this movie said that there's a lot of abrupt scene changes, and yes. Yes, they're like, this thing happens, and they're like, oh, now we're doing this thing, and now this thing, and so it was a little bit abrupt. Not too bad, like I wasn't too jarred like some reviewers were saying, but that's definitely there. Now, there was a part in the movie where people do some young, free-spirited, slightly risky thing on the road, I'll just say that, and I just thought it was too much. I just didn't believe it. I didn't believe that the characters would do that at this time. And it was very clearly a way to get certain characters to certain places to encounter certain people, and it just felt contrived, and I wasn't buying it. So I thought that was kind of dumb. Speaking of that, Jesse Plemons' character with the like rose-colored glasses from the movie trailer, like everyone's saying, he did awesome. Now I think people are overplaying it because his part is so tiny, and he does great, but I think people are just like blowing it out of proportion. He did absolutely phenomenal, but I mean, it wasn't like the best thing in the world. Now, one thing I thought was interesting with his character is in the trailer you see that he's wearing a military uniform, but the only patch he has on his uniform is the combat infantryman badge, but he doesn't have any name tapes, he doesn't have any American anything. And I just thought that was an interesting touch to portray that, to be like that's the only badge that he's displaying. So getting back to some of the extreme caricatures of existing American stereotypes, is you have people killing people from other countries or that have accents. So there are people that have prejudices against that, and they took this in the movie and just ramped it up. And then the Western forces, this was straight up like your gung-ho, G.I. Joe, patriotic American 90s military commercial. Like, these guys were gung-ho. These were the ones that I was like, oh, like, look how they're behaving. I was like, that's some good on-screen, like, military, like it looks convincing. And the sound effects of all the different military equipment and weapons I felt like were very convincing. But yeah, the Western forces were absolutely like your patriotic gung-ho, right? They're trying to get to the capital. So read into that how you will, but they were the most like together and efficient, but also extreme and like patriotic. Like, I don't believe in this term, but I think it was portraying a toxic patriotism with the Western forces. Again, it's weird that it's California and Texas, but I don't think that's the point. I think the point is it's this side with this desire. It could be any states, right? It doesn't matter. You know what states would be there. Like you could draw it on a map which states would be in which forces. And I don't think it gets that in the movie, and I don't think the movie cares, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what two states the two stars on their flag represents. What represents are their objectives and the way they're acting. And I perceive them as being, like I said, the 90s military commercials, the G.I. Joe, the gung-ho, the patriotist, those kind. Also, there's scenes with flags, right? Like you have the 2-star flag and the American flag. Like, I think some of those scenes were CG, and I know there's a lot of CG, like smoke and explosions and stuff, but like you couldn't sew a flag and throw it up on a pole and film it. Like, come on, CG flags are dumb. Now, if you're wondering how a lot of the people in this movie reacted to a lot of the stuff happening in this movie, the answer is the F word. that is their reaction to the stuff happening, is that they really like that word, and I guess that's just really helped them react to all the stuff they were reacting to. All right, let's get to let's wrap this up. So overall, I heard people say they didn't like the ending. I liked the ending. I thought it suited the movie. I thought it fit the movie. I had no problem with the ending. I actually kind of liked it. It's very unsettling, very uncomfortable with what's on screen, but it absolutely fit the movie. But the way that one of the press people was jeering in a certain way at a certain character just made me feel that the movie had a little bit of a lean. Just saying. Not so much like a Wonder Woman 1984, like that guy, like the Pedro Pascal character in that movie. Not quite that on the nose, but I think it was leaning that way, if you know what I mean. The action was cool. Sound effects were great. The effects were mostly good. Like it was just like the smoke and fire to me that never works, because I've seen so much smoke and fire in my life as being a wildland firefighter. There's a part they're driving through a burning forest, and I love, this is going to sound weird, but you can look at my channel. I love to, this is going to sound weird. Anyway, I've been around a lot of forest fires, and I've been driven through a lot of them, and that is something that is a very visceral and incredible experience that I enjoy very much, and this movie was trying to portray it, and I get it. You can't light the whole forest on fire and drive a car through it in a movie, but it didn't look real. It didn't look convincing to me at all. At all. But I get what they were going for, and so I could take that intent, but my goodness, you can't recreate that convincingly, I guess. I mean, only the Brave did pretty good with the fire in that movie. overall, is the movie good? Yes. Is it as shocking as everybody's thinking? No, I don't think so. Maybe I'm just desensitized. The music was weird. The acting was outstanding. The cinematography was good. Very artistic, but good. Like I said about the press being so up in the action that they're basically room clearing with people was weird. Some characters made some stupid choices, but kind of made sense for their characters. I don't think the movie is as politically innocent as everyone else is saying. I think it does have a little bit of a lean. Or if it doesn't have a lean, like I said, I'm going to say the same line again. It is portraying an extreme caricature of existing American stereotypes. They're just, I don't know if they're just ramping them up and being like, look at this stereotype. This is you in a more intense situation. You better be careful. But I could see the movie being divisive, but it should not encourage a civil war. It was awful. We should not want that. We should not want war ever, anywhere. My goodness. Was it cathartic, like Red Dawn is? I don't know. So overall, it was okay. Just know that you're not getting an action movie. You're getting a road trip movie about journalists that has some action in it, but it's all from their perspective. And obviously, this movie is not for everyone. For me, I was very excited to see it. This kind of movie, I really enjoy. I really enjoy going there in my mind and confronting those spaces and feeling the feels that it has to share and going on with my life and trying to be a better person and prevent these kind of things. So thanks for watching. Let me know what you think, if you're going to go watch this thing or if you disagree with any of my spicy hot takes. Anyway, thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.